No, not that end. The end of all the political ads on TV and political banter on social media. Regardless of how the election goes, there are still some things you can be sure of. God is still on the throne. The tomb will still be empty. Jesus will still be King of Kings and Lord of Lords. The Holy Bible will still have all the answers to every problem. Prayer will still work. Christ, not the government, will still be our salvation. And there will still be room at the cross. While these truths could clearly go on and on, Christian, you know the mission, the Great Commission, as the battle for souls continues. A message from VCY America.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Weekend Radio with Brannon House.
All right, welcome. Glad you guys are with us. We are going to be joined by Leo Holman in studio today. Leo Holman, and we might get an update from Mark Mitchell, the head pollster from Rasmussen. He's going to be with us for several reports tomorrow night. Roger Stone will be reporting from Mar-a-Lago. I think we're also going to get a report from Mike Lindell. I'll talk to him today. He wants to come on tomorrow night. We're going to be joined by J.J. Carroll. We're going to be joined by Leo in studio, along with Garland Favorito in studio. And we're going to be doing updates, checking in with pretty much election integrity people from all the swing states right off the bat. We pre-recorded a ton of those interviews today so that we can bring you those small snippets throughout the early part of the evening just to get an update on what's going on with the election integrity to try to stop any election shenanigans with the swing states. We'll also be joined by who else, Logan? I mean, the list is big. Who else is joining us tomorrow night? Give me some. J.J. Carroll, Roger Stone. Colonel Manus is going to be, he was going to be in studio, but he went to Palm Beach. The Trump, Veterans for Trump asked him to be there in Palm Beach, so he's going to be reporting there. We have our reporter, Neil McCabe. Neil McCabe is going to be there along with our cameraman, Easton. So we have a cameraman and our reporter, Neil McCabe, there in Palm Beach at the watch party as well to see what goes down. Who else do we have, Logan? I mean, the list is long. I think we got David Limbaugh is going to check in. I think Michael Reagan's going to be checking in. Peter McCullough. I mean, the list is, a lot of the people you see here regularly are all going to be checking in. Michael Yon says he wants to check in. Who? Oh, I think Gordon Chang, yep, and Vandersteel. The list is quite lengthy of all the people checking in. That coverage starts tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Central, 7 Eastern, worldviewtube.com. worldviewtube.com. All right, before we get into today and what's going on, we just came off our Ozarks Worldview Weekend, so Leo's in studio getting ready for tomorrow night. By the way, Leo, you just met the most important person on the team. You just met Dolly for the first time.
I did. She looked at me with those big, brown, sad eyes and then walked around to you and didn't come back.
Yeah, she was over here laying on her pet bed, and Leo is on the side of the desk where she is. And when he walked in the room and sat down, she looked at him and walked over here.
Yeah, she didn't know what to make of me.
She did not know what to make of you. And so she came over here by my chair, and she wouldn't budge. She wouldn't budge. I'm like, go back to your bed. She wouldn't budge. So stranger danger. You know, we've trained her well. She doesn't know you yet, but she will. So Logan had to bring her pet bed right next to my anchor chair here. So she's literally inches from my feet. And she's already pretty well knocked out asleep. She just needed to be close to Dad. She's not sure about Leo. But anyway, she'll get to know you, Leo. Just like all the dogs did, right?
I'm basically harmless.
You are basically harmless. That's right. Well, let's talk about the Ozarks Worldview Weekend real quick before we get to the news. What an event that was. We had several hundred people there. I think we ended up having about 350, 400 in attendance, which was down because so many people were afraid to travel. And even national surveys are showing people are afraid to travel. But we had about 1,500 plus that were live streaming it, that are in our club, that paid to join and live stream it. So we were reaching quite a few people. And now, of course, all the archive of all those keynote talks are at Worldview. Are they in the vault now already, Logan? WorldviewTube.com/vault. Are they in there? Some of them are, and some will be added. Okay. There's one or two there now and more going in today, so they'll be there at worldviewtube.com/vault. But what'd you make of the weekend? I mean, we got people to us saying they thought it was one of the best years, but that always happens at the event because everything they're talking about is very relevant to what's going on, so it always seems like the best event to them. Mm-hmm. But what kind of feedback were you getting from this weekend?
I had tons of people approach me and say that they were just very, very grateful for the fact that we put the conference on this year when we could have canceled it, due to it being so close to the election. People took a chance. They came, not as many as usual, but still a good crowd. And I think in one sense that added a little energy to it because everybody got to talk with everybody pretty much. Yeah. Because it wasn't a huge crowd.
People could go right up to the speakers as always, but this time they weren't competing with...
Exactly.
They weren't competing with 1,000.
I remember
1,000 people.
2 years ago when I spoke, there was a line 5-6 deep to talk to me, and they just gave up and walked away. Mm-hmm. And you would end up getting, monopolized by one or two people. This year it wasn't like that. Everybody got a chance to talk to the speakers.
Yeah. And, a lot of alumni, a lot of VCY listeners, a lot of VCY America listeners. I asked people where you're from, and they would tell me.
Wisconsin and Minnesota, tons of people.
Highly represented. Yeah. Highly represented Minnesota and Wisconsin.
I would say Missouri, Minnesota, and Wisconsin was the majority of the folks I met.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a great event. And
what a way to wind it up with Bill Federer.
Yesterday morning?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was that
was Saturday night. Saturday night, Bill Federer, and then Sunday morning, Dr. Woods. Yeah.
Right. But that was he spoke about propaganda, which is something that I've invested years of research in, and even I learned something from him. So, that was quite a presentation.
It was an excellent. All the folks did great. Mm-hmm. Again, all those are being loaded now. Some are there, more to come today at worldviewtube.com/vault. By the way, we also have a big event coming up February 22nd. February 22nd, that's a Saturday night. We're going to increasingly be doing about 1 a quarter special events on a Saturday night that will be, again, for our premium Vault members that support the ministry through that at worldviewtube.com/vault. So we have a next big event live streaming for the Vault members. It's going to be February 22nd. All right, let's go to this whole election thing. Now, we have Representative Andy Biggs, U.S. Representative Andy Biggs, is saying that Donald Trump is going to win and that the Republicans will keep the House and take the Senate. Yet we have Peter Berniger, who's been quite accurate, who's been really investigating the fraud. And boy, there is a lot of fraud. In fact, there's appears to be more fraud with the post office. I have a report on that here. Let's see here. This is put out by Peter Berniger. U.S. Postal Service doing it again, changing the mail delivery method of absentee ballots coming into election clerks. No absentee ballot envelope images because they are not sending them to the central sorting facilities where the high-speed scanners are located. This is how they cheated back in 2020. Also, if you remember, they changed the law, in fact, to not require scans of U.S. mail absentee envelopes going out, coming back in. And magically, all those images across the U.S., were not available. How convenient. Their email November 1st, quote, from Maine, United States Postal Service Regional sent Friday, November 1st, 2024, to Wisconsin District. Goes on from there. It talks about another change with Express. Please note below. So Peter Berniger is saying, look out. But yet Andy Biggs is saying Trump will win the White House. The Republicans will keep the House, gain the Senate. In other words, it's going to be so big, too big to rig. Some are saying it's going to be a Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter type situation, massive landslide, or Ronald Reagan versus Mondale. I don't know. I still am very, very concerned about the massive fraud. What say you tonight, this afternoon, November 4th, the day before the election, 2024? What say you, Leo?
Well, I think the longer the counting goes on, the greater the chance that it will be stolen. Mm-hmm. If we can get the results within, I'd say, 2 or 3 days of November the 5th, then I'm going with Trump. don't hold me to it. It's just a gut feeling. I could be totally wrong, but I think Trump wins if we get just low-scale cheating, not the massive cheating that would take, I think, weeks to pull off. I mean, they're going to have to manufacture so many votes to get her ahead that it's going to take literally weeks. If we can get the results in under a week, 3, 4, 5, even 6 days, I think the chances are pretty good for Trump.
Now, apparently, the folks in Oregon, Washington State, Nevada, Washington, D.C., they're boarding up their shops left and right. We've got the pictures, the images. They'll be on the Worldview Report newscast tonight.
Yeah, I mean, they're preparing for the worst, and they should, because those were some of the exact cities that were hit the hardest in 2020 in the summer of love. Portland, Seattle, Nevada kind of surprised me. They're putting their National Guard troops on high alert there as well. But Oregon and Washington State, you bet. D.C., you bet. So, yeah, and I would not be surprised to see more cities just not have announced it yet, but go on board with the same type of plan.
Yeah, National Guard being activated in several states. Washington State, Oregon, Nevada, activate National Guard ahead of the election. That's coming from several sources, including Pamela Geller, reporting that. So I don't know what these groups know, but they must know something. About,
absolutely.
And by the way, Rashida Tlaib, reporting in the Worldview Report tonight, she did not endorse Donald Trump. She's from Michigan, of course. She's notorious, part of the squad, promoting and wrapping herself in the Palestinian flag on the night of her primary win, not the American flag. I mean, a total anti-American. But she must think Donald Trump's going to win because she won't endorse anybody. Jeff Bezos wouldn't let the Washington Post endorse anybody. LA Times is not endorsing anybody.
USA Today won't endorse anybody.
So they all must be expecting Trump's going to win, and they don't want to be on the wrong side of this.
That's what it's looking like. Yeah. That is exactly what it's looking like. I can't see any other reason why major leftist publications like that wouldn't endorse Kamala. They believe in everything she believes in, but they don't want to be left hanging out to dry with a completely antagonistic president in office and them being on record endorsing his opponent.
Now, one of the things I'm watching, of course, is if Donald Trump wins and he decides he is going to start to deport all these illegal invaders, folks, would it not be like these folks to say, many of these folks to say, we'll just burn down your house? I mean, if you're going to evict us from the house, we'll just burn the house to the ground. There you go. So how many of these illegal invaders are here, particularly the military-age males, the 1 million terrorists that J.J. Carroll says are here, that this starts and this begins the chaos and they begin destroying and destruction, saying, you're going to remove us? Fine. We'll just destroy everything on our way out the door. And they let these illegal invaders do massive damage to this country. Again, do you really think they're going to go quietly? That, number one, the illegal invaders. Number two, are the Marxists just going to say, okay, Donald Trump won, let him have his 4 years? Or are they going to do what they always do, which is chaos, 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 as much as they can get? I can't figure out why you have all these people here other than to try to get them on the voter rolls through the DMV to steal the election, which is why I'm still concerned. But number two, if they cannot steal the election, what's the backup plan for these illegals other than to create chaos and have Donald Trump so involved in the bird flu pandemic they might release in 2025, which they're already apparently gearing up for, according to 6-hour Zoom meetings with the FDA and CDC and all these groups we've been talking about, and chaos between banking, pandemic, terrorism. They're going to keep Trump pretty busy, are they not?
And riots.
And riots.
Yeah.
What do you think, Leo?
Absolutely. I mean, this would be right in the wheelhouse of some of these groups that are already experienced in rioting, like the Sunrise Group, which, according to Trevor Loudon, is a Maoist organization. I would think they've got a detailed plan in place for getting their people out in the streets if Donald Trump is declared the winner.
All right, let's come back and talk about what is going absolutely viral, and that is in New York, about a dozen SWAT team members showing up and taking a couple's squirrel that was Peanut and a raccoon named Fred. And this has got people across the country upset. Why does it matter? We'll tell you.
Be sober, be vigilant, for your adversary the devil as a roaring lion walketh about seeking whom he may devour. Hi, this is Jim Schneider. Are you aware of what's happening today? Families are being torn apart. Children are being targeted with the world's philosophies. Anger and resistance to truth is building. Churches which once stood firm are abandoning sound biblical doctrine. Biblical values are under attack where right is wrong and wrong is right. Yes, there is much devouring going on today. Addressing these critical issues is Crosstalk, a live interactive talk program designed to inform and motivate listeners to action. Crosstalk airs daily, live at 2 p.m., repeated at 8 p.m. Central Time. You're invited to listen, gain information, and live your life as salt and light to the world around us. Listen live or sign up for the podcast at crosstalkamerica.com.
Back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com, worldviewradio.com, TV sites, worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com. All right. One of the stories going absolutely viral over the weekend was that of a New York couple, a husband and wife, that have a rescue for animal rescue. And of course, yours truly is a big animal lover, always have been. So some of you out there are going to get as irate or already are as I am about this. But people say, well, why does it matter? It's a distraction. No, it's actually not a distraction because it is further showing people the destructive, tyrannical nature of government. Government, by its very nature, tends to go corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, New York is, of course, very, very, very corrupt state. We know that, right? It's a corrupt state. We saw what they tried to do during COVID passports, not letting people into restaurants, ginning up fake charges against Donald Trump, just making it up. In New York, I hate to say it, but the fine people that live there, we have some of our listeners there. I think of Carol. She's a dear, sweet lady. She's been at our Ozark conference, and her husband. They live in New York. A lot of sweet people live in New York. But what a corrupt government. And here we have a dozen SWAT team members raiding the home of a man because he had a pet squirrel named Peanut, who I think he'd had for 7 years. It was trained. It was the mascot of their animal rescue organization, which I think is a nonprofit animal rescue. They also had a baby raccoon they raised named Fred. And they raided this family, and they took their pets, and they euthanized them. Now, isn't New York a sanctuary state? And here they have all of these illegals and terrorists they let in, but don't you dare have a raccoon or a squirrel. One of my earliest memories as a child was that my grandparents, my father's parents, had a squirrel. That's one of my earliest memories, was this squirrel that was in a bird cage that my grandparents had rescued. I think a tree had been cut down on the property, and this baby squirrel was in it, and they took it and they rescued it and they raised it. And I guess they probably let it go at some point. But one of my earliest memories, I couldn't have been more than 3 or 4, was this squirrel. And if you had told my grandparents back in 1972 or 73, whatever it was, there'll be people that have their homes raided by a dozen SWAT team members for doing this. They would think, no, that kind of thing doesn't go on in America. No elected officials with any real brain cells that operate would do something that horrific and violation of civil liberties and freedoms over a squirrel that had 1 million followers on social media. Now, people say, again, what's the big deal? Well, I'll tell you the big deal. This is, again, if you watch it on social media, people are saying, we're sick and tired of the government. We don't trust the media, and we don't trust the government. We are sick of the government at all levels, local, state, federal. Hey, look, in my local community, one of the big problems is the community is largely run by, in my opinion, and I got a lot of people to back me up on this, by a cabal of realtors and developers, including people who don't even live in the community, and apparently Pakistani Muslims that apparently want to fund some of the folks running for office so they can get their gas stations. And I'm not kidding you, okay? And who caters to this? Big people getting donations from people who don't even live in the state or in our area, because it's all about what? Follow the money, development. The cabal of realtors, developers, it's a cabal. And as one of my friends said recently, who's running for mayor in our town, said, if it's this corrupt at the local level, can you imagine how corrupt it is at the national level? That's right. So don't fool yourself because you live in a, quote, conservative community that your town is pristine as the wind-driven snow. It's not. Even those of you that think you live in Republican communities, many of those Republicans are as big a crooks as any Democrat you'll meet. Maybe more so. Right, Leo?
I can speak from experience on that one. We live in Coweta County, Georgia, which is a 70-30 Trump type of county, okay? They vote 70% to 75% for Trump. That's how conservative it is. But and every member, Brandon, of the county commissioners is Republican. Now, there's not, there might be one Democrat on there, but it's dominated by Republicans. And basically what developers want, developers get. Good example. They're proposing a massive data center for this county that I live in. It just made the local newspaper last week. And so nobody has known about it. But if you go drive by the site, they're already clearing the land. They haven't got permission yet to build the data center, and it was just reported in the local paper that they've applied for a permit, but this is how sure they are that they're going to get it.
That's because they probably have greased the skids along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They've greased the skids
and
along
we've already got a data center in a neighboring county, Fayette County. So they are loading Georgia up with massive data centers for AI, artificial intelligence.
Back in 2008, I found a document in our community where they were going to use eminent domain on people that are in I think you could probably describe it as a very economically challenged, literally across the tracks, across the railroad tracks in our town. These are economically challenged people, many of them. They were going to use eminent domain to take their property for a development until I brought it up and pointed it out. And then they denied it until I pulled it out of my shirt pocket in a public meeting. They lied to my face and everybody in the crowd, so I pulled it out of my shirt pocket. So I don't care who your elected officials are. The chances are overwhelming. The majority of your local officials are corrupt or on the take. And those that aren't, you'll know who they are because they're going to be the loudest ones screaming and hollering. Okay? So it becomes pretty obvious who's bought and paid for and who's interested in plundering for themselves and special interests and who's not. Because the ones that aren't, they're known in the community for the fact that they're constantly battling the machine. Right? They're known. They're on the city council, the town commission, and they're constantly known for battling the machine of Republicans.
And they're probably the one that the local paper is always pummeling and writing negative stories about. Yeah.
Yep. Because they're bought and paid for by advertisers. Right. So all of that to say is people are sick and tired of the liberal media. They're sick and tired of government. They are sick and tired of being treated in a nanny state. And if you own a little squirrel and you own a raccoon that you've rescued, they're going to bust your door down with a dozen SWAT team members and euthanize your pet. But that's okay. You let terrorists come into New York. And all the horrific things go on in New York. That's fine. But don't you dare show compassion toward a baby squirrel or a raccoon and raise it and then turn around and use it as mascots for your nonprofit for rescuing animals. Listen to this from TMZ. Here we go. Try it again.
We just learned that they have euthanized Peanut.
And the raccoon as well.
I am so sorry. This must be really difficult for you.
It not only tears my family apart, but Peanut was the cornerstone of our nonprofit animal rescue. And 10 to 12 DEC officers raided my house as if I was a drug dealer. I was sat outside my house for 5 hours. I had to get a police escort to my bathroom. I wasn't even allowed to feed my rescue horses breakfast or lunch. I was sat there like a criminal after they interrogated my wife to check out her immigration status, then proceeded to ask me if I had cameras in my house. then proceeded to go through every cabinet, nook, and cranny of my house for a squirrel and a raccoon.
They got a search warrant?
They got a search warrant. 4 departments and a judge signed off on a search warrant for a squirrel and a raccoon. And then they took them and killed them.
Why did they go through all that to get a search warrant for an animal that had been with you very safely, and the world witnessed this, for 7 years? Why now suddenly did they show up with a search warrant and take these animals?
We haven't a clue. We don't know who made the complaints. Again, Peanut was an indoor squirrel, not harming anybody. He's been with us for 7 years. Not a single complaint was ever filed for this animal. We had him for 7.5 years. He became the world's most famous squirrel. We weren't hiding him by any means. He was all over TikTok. He became the first squirrel on TikTok to ever hit 1 million followers. He did every news station around the world. He's helped people. He's helped kids gather joy. And then we started a nonprofit animal rescue called Peanut's Freedom Farm to help animals like Peanut fight a good fight when they're in a neglected case or they're sitting in a slaughter auction. And he was the cornerstone of our life and our organization. We used his platform to help raise money for the 300 animals we have at our sanctuary.
All right. Now, some could say, oh, well, that's a lot of emotion over a squirrel and a raccoon. That's not the point. And you may not be a big animal lover. And sometimes I know the ads for even as a big animal lover as I am, okay? And I am. Okay, my last lab, Delta, never spent a night away from me in 8.5 years. She just didn't spend a night away from me. That wasn't so much for her as it was me, because we just tend to be very attached to our animals, and that's just the way we are. My wife often says, you know, if your audience really knew how tender-hearted you were, they would probably like you more. Because if anything shows up stray, a cat or anything else, you know, it's probably going to find a home. I just am that way when it comes to animals. I love animals. And many of you are the same way. And maybe it's because they're so vulnerable and helpless, and, you know, you just, I don't know what it is, but for some of us really like animals. Others, not so much. I talked to one of my buddies this weekend, and he saw my little white mini schnauzer, Pearl, and my wife was trying to explain to him, you should get one for your little girl. She would love it. He said, oh, she would. She would absolutely love a dog like that. But no, I cannot have a dog in my house. This guy is like, he is like perfectionist to the ultimate. And he just couldn't imagine having a dog. Okay, I get it. That's to each his own, right? But the issue isn't the animal as much as it is the sanctity of a man's home. Yeah. It used to be said that your home is your castle, right? And you don't bust into someone's home. And there was a day and time when anyone tried to do this would have likely been met with deadly force. And I don't want to see violence, but I can tell you if this kind of abuse continues, Americans are finally going to say, I'm done. My home, my Alamo, I don't care if you have a warrant or not. Because these judges, many of them are illegitimate. Their laws are illegitimate. They're outside the law, and you're not piercing the sanctity of my home. We're not playing this game with you anymore. And to consent to tyranny is disobedience to God. And at some point, somebody on one side or the other or both are going to get hurt. And I don't want to see that. But people are sick and tired of families being treated like this when you let criminals and terrorists and rapists and murderers come in, loot, steal, murder, and then let them back on the street till their court date, which they never show up for. But don't you dare own a squirrel or a little raccoon that you use for fundraising for your animal rescue business or nonprofit. This has gone viral, but it's good because I don't care what your political persuasion is, or even at this point, some of your religious persuasions, people are all agreeing. Government at the local, state, and federal level is out of hand. True or false?
True. I mean, this is the type of thing, I guess, because it is emotional for animal lovers, that can coalesce people who wouldn't normally join together to fight tyranny.
Yeah.
Left and right and center. Everyone knows something like this is wrong.
A man has his wife interrogated as to her immigration status in a state known for not caring what anyone's immigration status is. Why is that? Why is that? It's pure intimidation. Have to be escorted to your own bathroom, searching your home. You know what? There is a line. I've said that for years on this show. My home, my Alamo. And the American people have to understand, I don't care if they have a warrant or not. At some point, your laws are no more valuable than the paper they're written on because you are lawless and we don't comply with tyrants.
The worldviews of our present culture clashes with a biblical worldview. Certainly, the philosophies of our day, though accepted, deny biblical truth. It's important that a standard be maintained so that which is counterfeit can be detected. Each day, Worldview Weekend confronts these views and encourages the listener to adopt a biblical worldview. The program helps to sort out truth from error and to cause the listener to be alert to that which falls short of biblical truth. There is much information given on Worldview Weekend, and it is helpful to go back and listen a second time. CD copies of Worldview Weekend radio programs are made available for a donation of $6 from VCY America. To obtain your copy, simply call 1-800-729-9829. Think of others you know who would also be helped by the information and get a copy for them as well. Just call 1-800-729-9829.
Yeah, the issue isn't this couple. I know nothing about this couple. I know nothing about them. I know nothing about their organization. So this is not an endorsement of them or anything else. It's the principle is still the principle. And Leo, you were making a great point during the break. The Amish have been treated the same way, Leo.
Yeah, they've been raided time and time again in recent years because they sell raw milk locally to the public. And they've had the U.S. Department of Agriculture raiding their farms, just completely violating them. They're a very nonviolent, peaceful people. And from what I understand, they normally don't vote either. But from what I understand, they are voting this time for Donald Trump.
That's right.
Because they've just had enough of these federal agents raiding their homes.
Mm-hmm. Ian Miles Cheong, who has I follow him on X. He has 1.1 million. I think he follows a lot of the Antifa type and what goes on. He said, look, this isn't about the squirrel. It's not about the raccoon. It's not about this couple and their business. He says, it's about the state. The state can barge into a man's home at the stroke of a judge's pen, strip him of all his rights, and treat him like a felon, rifle through his belongings, murder his pet animals over an anonymous complaint, made thousands of miles away, this person was. The officers are, quote, just following standard procedure, end quote. There are places in the free world where the bureaucracy operates like this. The UK, Germany, not pleasant. America is joining that list. It's become overly bureaucratic, and not only is it costing Americans trillions of dollars a year, that money is being used to deprive Americans of their own constitutional right.
Yeah, and in Germany, who have they raided? Homeschoolers.
Yes.
It is a felony crime to be a homeschooling family in Germany. Has been, I think, since homeschooling started in the modern era. And we've always looked upon Germany, homeschoolers here in America, as an outlier. But it's starting to happen in the UK. It's starting to happen in Canada. If I were a homeschool family in the United States right now, I'd be nervous.
Yeah, well, remember Kamala. She sounded intoxicated to me, but she talked about how with the stroke of her pen, she could take something from nothing to a felony and ruin people's lives. And she seemed to think that was funny.
And she said that she would violate their privacy, their home, and search for weapons and get an inventory of someone's weapons just because they could. No reason necessary.
Mm-hmm. This is one of the Dallas County election judges. He's blowing the whistle. Talking back to the election, listen to this.
All we know is that we're told to trust us, trust the authorities. Well, I don't, because they've given me no reason to trust them. Things are the way they are because someone wants it that way. And by the way, our election administrator did change the password. I'm Beth Biesel in Dallas County, and currently I'm serving as an election judge and have been an election judge for over a dozen years. When I watched the video, of course, I was very, very alarmed that those passwords were just outside of the polling place. But I was more alarmed, and this is why I reached out, I was more alarmed at the answers that were given from the Dallas County Elections Department and from the Attorney General's office.
So if you could you just explain to me a little bit about what we were given? When we were handed this piece of paper, it had some numbers on it and the word judge, and it looked to us, and we were told that it was login credentials for something. But after you saw the paper, what were you seeing, and what did that information actually give people access to?
I would say definitely yes. But that rogue actor would have to have some knowledge, more than I could. The only thing that I could do, if I were not an election judge, but even as election judge, I'm not smart enough to actually change votes, and probably most people are not. I could say, if I were the janitor of that facility, get in that room, look at that piece of paper, get on the poll book, and you could actually vote people. Now, what that means is just change the status of a voter from active eligible, a voter who could cast a ballot, to acting as if they're going to cast a ballot, and change them to voted. Then that janitor, we're just making up, facility manager, whatever, someone who had access at night to that room, they could, quote unquote, vote that a voter, check in a voter, but then they'd have to get the piece of paper that's a ballot card. They'd have to know how to stick it in the printer and hit print, and then you have a ballot card with some header information. Then they'd have to use the password to get over to the touch screen, stick it in there, make some selections, press print. Then they'd have to go over to the tabulator and, use the password to get into the tabulator and insert that ballot.
In this specific instance, theoretically, if a rogue actor came upon that piece of paper and wanted to change votes, right? That's what everyone's concerned about. Would they have had the potential to do something like that?
I would say definitely yes.
All right. So we're getting reports like this, Leo. I mean, this is just one of many videos, audios we could play from all over the country. And this is why Peter Berniger and so many others are very, skeptical about the outcome of this election. I know there's been a lot of strides made in certain states with Garland Favorito and voterga.org and others, but in a lot of states, nothing's been done. And in fact, it seems as Pennsylvania, one of the biggest county there, Maricopa County, it seems like there's not a lot been done to fix the problem at all in places like Maricopa County. What are you hearing?
You mean in Arizona?
Yeah, Maricopa County, Arizona, yep.
Yeah, and they're saying Maricopa, weren't they the ones saying that they're going to need a week or two to count their ballot?
Maybe 13 days.
13 days.
Because what we're hearing out of there is 90,000. Here we go. Here it is from Crooked Election Group dumps 90,000 ballot registrations into Maricopa County right before sign-up deadline ends. 90,000 ballots dropped. What was the margin of victory, in 2020 for Trump? It was 11,000 or something? It wasn't much. 20,000? It wasn't much.
Right.
So the last time they were caught injecting fake ballots with no proper watermarks printed on non-secure paper in key counties after they were forced into Plan B when Trump beat their early cheat prep on election night. Furious dumping of boxes of pre-printed, we go to the pre-printed fake ballots in key counties in the battlegrounds ensued for 3 days. The Arizona audit caught it. They knew that wasn't going to work again. So what strategy change did they come up with? This time around, they had to find a way to create fake voters while using real ballots with the proper watermarks printed on the secure paper. You use your vote fraud firm to get the county clerk to mail you thousands of real ballots by using thousands of fake voter registration forms. Then you pay your staff to fill out the real ballot and turn them in. And of course, they've managed to mess up the execution of this new strategy and are getting caught red-handed in multiple counties, and the vote fraud firms are going to be exposed and prosecuted. Well, you would hope they would be. But this would largely be taken care of, Leo, if we would just go back to voting on one day,
yes,
paper ballot, counted, and done. And I'm sorry, if you don't get to vote, you don't get to vote. If some people are supposedly disenfranchised, it'll be a smaller number than are, Because if your vote is canceled out by fraud, you're being disenfranchised. So all of this screaming and hollering about it's not fair, it's racist, it's disenfranchisement. How many millions are being disenfranchised now by having their vote canceled out by fraud? It'll be a lot less if it's one day of voting, paper, hand counted, open to the public, filmed, videotaped. Everybody can see what's happening like in the old days. And by the way, there needs to be laws that include, I'm talking massive, I'm not a big guy for jails. Jails are for people who do violent crimes. Non-violent crime should not mean jail. But if you are a person is involved in the elections and you allow this to happen or a part of it, the fines have got to be so substantial that it would deter anyone from doing any crime. Leo?
Well, the problem is we don't have judges who are even willing to hear the case.
And why is that, Leo?
Are they bought off? I don't know. I mean, there's certainly, for a judge to reject even hearing a case and say, well, you don't have standing. When a judge says you don't have standing, 90% of the time, that just means he doesn't want to hear the case because it's too sensitive, too political, too highly charged. And judges don't like to be put on the spot like that, typically. And so, that's a cop-out whenever you hear that you don't have standing. It's hard to find a judge that will hear a case of voter fraud, particularly when it's the establishment that is on the defensive, and it's the establishment candidate that's on the defensive, and it's the Donald Trump type MAGA people who are claiming the fraud. What we need is a system of blind justice. That's what we used to have, but it seems to be gone now. It seems to be weighted in favor of the establishment and against the populist type candidates like Donald Trump or Carrie Lake or anyone like that. They just can't seem to find a forum in court when it's just blatant, obvious voter fraud.
Wow. All right, let's open the phone lines. Folks, what do you think is going to happen? 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. If you attended the Ozarks conference and you want to call in, tell us what you thought about the weekend. We always do that every year pretty much if you can get through. But what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? And is this going to drag out? Or is it going to be too big to rig and we'll know quickly? What are your thoughts? I mean, isn't it interesting? They're calling up the National Guard. They're boarding up shops in certain places. Very interesting indeed. We also, by the way, 1-800-347-9829, 1-800-347-9829. Just the News is also reporting, Leo, that the DOJ invokes Civil War-era law in warning federal agents not to respond to polling places with guns. That's kind of weird. What's that all about?
Apparently it's been done before, but there wasn't much made of it. This time people are more concerned because, there's been a lot of threats this year. There was an ISIS plot that was foiled a week or two ago. Remember that? To disrupt elections. There's been threats made. So why do we have the federal government saying they won't show up with guns? Now, there is a caveat to that 1864 law, Civil War era law, saying that if polling places are shut down because of some event, whether it be a shooting event, active shooter or whatnot, then they are allowed to show up with guns. So, I don't know how big a deal we should make out of it. It just seems odd that they would be making a big deal out of it in a year when we've had so many threats made. Could this be a cue, or could this be taken, Brandon, by some terrorist organization as a cue to go ahead with your terrorist event because the feds won't respond? I mean, you got to wonder about that.
Yeah, indeed you do. Let's try to squeeze in Susan, line one. Susan from Wisconsin. Susan, thanks for calling in. Hi, Susan.
Hey, one quick thought. If President Trump wins, will Kamala Harris certify the election, her being the vice president? Also, if she wins, is it a conflict of interest, and could she certify herself even though maybe she didn't really win?
Leo?
Well, answer to the first question, I say if the Democrats take the House, I predict she will not certify because the Democrats will be behind her in not wanting to certify. They'll have the majority, and they'll say Donald Trump is a convicted criminal, and he's a Russian asset. The Russians were involved in putting out fake news and influenced the election.
And we'll be right back. Don't go away.
Part of the Thief in the Night series, here is a clip from A Distant Thunder.
Your right hand, please. That trick, young woman, is used in here 50 times a day. Now, if you want your child cared for, you must have your ID.
I can't take the mark. My baby is dying.
The Thief in the Night 4-part prophecy DVD set is available from VCY America as our way of saying thank you for your donation of $25 or more. The set includes A Thief in the Night, A Distant Thunder, Image of the Beast, and Prodigal Planet. Call VCY America at 1-800-729-9829, 1-800-729-9829, or order online at vcyamerica.org.
In fact, I've seen a video today where apparently some security guard, and I watched the video, at the Buffalo Bills team. Wait a minute, where's Buffalo Bills? That's New York again.
Yeah.
Is kicking someone out of the stadium for wearing a Trump shirt. And I watched the video, and the security guard's trying to tell him he can't wear a political shirt. Is this the same NFL that has not the national anthem, but also has the now African flag, the African song instead of the national anthem, or in addition to the national anthem, which, is this the same NFL that has let these guys take the knee? I mean, has promoted one radical group after another, the COVID shot and everything else. This is the same NFL. Well, I'm not sure that's an NFL policy. According to some that have looked it up, that pertains to players' uniforms and equipment. But there you go. You got a security guard telling this guy that you are not allowed to wear your Trump shirt. And you can't have any of it. I won't show the audio because I don't know what they're all going to say. I've listened to it, but I can't remember. If there's any cursing, but the guy shows his shirt, and he's actually got a jacket over the shirt. But to think that this is where we've come to, you can't show up at a game with a shirt on that says, Trump or whatever. I mean, this is fascism, But if it's not the NFL policy, this guy needs to be fired. And again, push back, people, push back. A lot of things that these people are doing and calling for is not legal. It's not constitutional. Do not comply. Do not comply. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to, let's see who's first up here. I was logged in. Where'd it go? Here we go. Let's go to Eldon, line 4. Eldon calling in from Texas. Hi, Eldon.
Brett, how you doing today?
Great. Thank you for calling in.
Great. I'm kind of concerned because, it's been really, really quiet as far as the Democrats on the side of the election. And usually they're this quiet. They're being quiet for a reason. And I think they kind of feel like they have this election in the bag, so to speak. So that's why that's my assumption that they're just not as outraged as they normally would be,
Wow. Great point. Let's go to, thanks for calling in, Eldon. Eldon from Texas. We've heard from Susan in Wisconsin. Let's go to Jody in Wisconsin, line 1. Hi, Jody.
Hi, I'm a first-time caller, but I've been listening to you for years and years and years.
Well, thank you, Jody. Thank you.
My comment is about the tragedy with the squirrel. People do not know their history. I mean, squirrels were as common as dogs and cats in the 18 and 1900s. Everyone had squirrels. So, I mean, to do this to this person and to, for his foundation, and they say bring him to wildlife sanctuaries. Well, a lot of wildlife sanctuaries, they can't take any more on, or rescues, wildlife rescues. And to give this little guy a chance was really, and the raccoon, it was horrible. The election, they've been zipping around our state, everywhere, and of course they're hitting the bigger Milwaukee and Madison areas more than, the small towns. where they get, I just encourage everyone to vote, and vote prayerfully. The Lord is still on the throne, and he'll get us through, and just that he's in control, and we have to trust.
Amen to that, Jody. Thank you, Jody. First-time caller. Call back in. First-time caller, long-time listener. Jody brings up a good point. To take it to what? To a sanctuary? They had a farm. He's got enough farmland to have horses. He talked about his horses. It was an indoor squirrel. Okay, this thing's not going to survive outside, obviously. It's been tamed and domesticated, and it has to be indoors. They're being taken care of. So someone says, I've heard some people on social media say, well, he didn't have the right paperwork. Okay. So call him up and say, hey, you need to get this paperwork done. Here's the paperwork. We'll email it to you. Can you fill it out and pay whatever it is annually or whatever to have your animal licensed or blah, 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 blah. Thank you. Let me tell you something. I actually got contacted by a state agency 2 years ago, but I'm in Tennessee, which is a more sane state. And the state agency said, hey, Mr. House, we need this form filled out from you. We're sending it over. Can you take care of this? And I sent it over to my tax attorney and accountant. And I said, look, this is the form needs to be filled out. My tax attorney and accountant were like, yep, they just need that form filled out. They don't want any issue. They know who you are. They know you're a broadcaster. They just want to get you in compliance, and everybody go about their day. I said, so you're saying that they don't want controversy? My accountant and tax attorney, yep. They just want you to fill out that form, get in compliance with this little form. They don't want to make a big brouhaha. They know, they've looked you up. They know exactly who you are and what you do, how big your audience is, and they just want to get you compliant. So if someone's complained or someone inside the government noticed it, they're like, okay, just give him the form. It was common sense, right? We've even had at the local, in the Mid-South level, people say to me that locally, that the government locally just wants you to get along with you and the government to get along. They don't want controversy.